Hey, Kurt.
Hey, Janice, how are you?
I'm good. I hear you want the floor first.
Yeah, we've got something that I've got to address for everybody, and if the meeting's running on too long, I'm gonna have to step out. So we figure we better get that out of the way first.
I don't know what's going on in here, but as soon as I got in this room, I started sneezing and blowing my nose.
Maybe just well, they've got some pollen in there, maybe some allergens.
They must be. Something has activated my allergies.
How have you been?
I've been good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing all right, just working away.
How's your mom? I never see her anymore.
She's doing good. She is enjoying retirement immensely.
Is
So
she? I was wondering if she'd adjust well.
yeah, I've been surprised by it. I thought that she'd have trouble with it actually, but no, she's enjoyed it. She's been working on family genealogies, which is a personal hobby of hers, and she and Dad have surprisingly not killed each other yet. So I'd say that's pretty good.
That's always good. Do y'all see those little boys anymore? Do y'all still
Oh,
see those little boys?
yeah, we do. Not so much with the pandemic, but we've done a lot of Zoom calls and things, for holidays, stuff like that. We're hoping now that everybody in the family's kind of got their jabs, we're hoping to get them in this summer and have them stay with us for a few weeks. So
Yeah. Now, who got them? End up getting them?
So my sister Vonda, she's essentially my adoptive sister, but her birth family's still in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her other surviving sisters that we're really close with, Brenda, ended up taking them in. Her husband is an ex-cop, and they both live over in Kennett. And Amy and I discussed for a while becoming guardians for them, but I think some of the elements of Vonda's birth family weren't super happy about that idea. And so Brenda and Willie, I think, were a good stopgap for that.
Yeah, your mom had told me y'all were thinking about taking them.
Yeah, it was tough because, like I said, there are elements of her birth family that they didn't really care for that idea. And two, Amy and I sort of struggled with, it's a tough thing raising two young Black men in the South, and having Brendan Willie know what that experience is like, I think is going to be helpful for them too. Having a good Black male role model, and Willie's going to be a good thing for them. But we struggled with it a lot. I felt a lot of guilt over it for a while. So yeah, but we're looking forward to being able to hopefully see them later this year in the summer.
Well, you can just be a good uncle.
That'd be the goal. So
we're actually having Rotary in person tomorrow for the first time in
really?
a year.
Okay.
Down at the Embassy Suites.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting getting back to it. What have you guys been doing? You've just been doing big Zoom meetings?
Yeah, I've been a loser. I hadn't been doing them.
I think I went to one, maybe two, the whole year. Yeah.
Well,
it's just not the same. It's not the same, and then I forget about it. It's in the middle of the day, and I'm doing 6 other things, and all of a sudden, it's halfway gone by the time I remember that. Yeah. Oh yeah, there was a Rotary meeting. Yeah.
And unless I just shut my door, and even then, people just bother me all the time, so I gave up. I didn't even pretend to do it.
I'll have to have my mask on.
Well, look, I think we have a quorum. We have 5 of you all here, and so I know some of you need to get on the road pretty quickly. So I just wanted to make sure we had enough to get our business done before we rock and roll. So.
Well, let me call this meeting to order. The first order of business is we need to talk about a chair, and I'd be glad to stay chair if y'all want me to be, but if you want to elect someone else, I didn't just need a motion.
So
As you know that the
David, go
chairs are up every year and you can go for 2 terms. And so Ms. Griffin has been the chair for 1 year, so she's able to go for a second year. And then Mr. Williams, I think he's just busy with lots of different things, and he decided not to sign up for another 5 years, another term to serve on the board. And so actually we also have to vote in a new vice chair person as well. So we need to have some motion to get both of those positions filled.
Well, I'll move to nominate Janice for a second term as chair if she's willing to do it. We can get that one out of the way.
I second the motion. Jean Passmore.
All in favor, yay.
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 Opposed, nay.
It's a thankless
Motion.
job that nobody wants to do.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get
No
it.
one's
Yeah,
gonna
what
nay
can you
vote
do?
that, Janice.
Okay, does anybody
Motion.
want to volunteer to be the vice chair?
Let's don't all talk at once.
I'd like to nominate Mike Johnson.
Kurt Hawkins will second that nomination.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Mr. Johnson, you're the vice chair.
Okay, you have my address to send the check to, correct?
Yeah,
It's coming.
I need to talk to you about mine.
yeah. Okay,
So Kurt, I think you had some business you need to
Yeah,
do
so we
before we start our regular business.
we've got a legal matter we need to discuss for the library. I've been looking into it for David and Tanya for about the last month or so. And it's kind of the point where we need to bring it to the board to figure out which avenue we want to take. So David, will you give the board just some background on who Innovative actually is and what service they perform for the library?
yeah, so in 2009, we changed it's the integrated library system. It's the system that basically keeps track of who all checks in and out the books and where they all are and everything like that. It's the library system that we all use. And we've had them for the past, decade or so. But we just decided we need to, in that time, there's just been a lot of innovation in terms of a lot of things that you can do. You can now text people and text your patrons, and you can do all different kinds of things. And so we put out an RFP, I guess it was in 2019 or early 2020. I think 2019, we put out another RFP because we wanted to see if we could, what was out there and whether we needed to switch to another company, stay with Innovative or what. And we also invited them to participate in the RFP. They sent us back a big questionnaire. We spent a lot of time sort of answering a lot of the questions that they had, and we went through the whole process. And then really at the end of the day, they never actually made a proposal, which we were a little stunned, but after they had asked us all those questions and everything, but we did get another company, and now we're with a different company called Book Systems, and we switched to them about a year ago, and they are about half the price of what we were paying for Innovative. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, so essentially the legal side of this is the Innovative, we had those discussions with them kind of late 2019 and 2020, and they ultimately didn't even submit a bid on this RFP process. They had a lot of shakeups and didn't really reach back out to us for a while, and then kind of circled on billing us again in late 2020 and in August of 2020. So at that time, the conversations we had with them were essentially to say, hey, look, yeah, we'll pay our final bill, but we've gone with a different company. You know, we're not going to be using you guys anymore. And they have since sent out, they stated that didn't meet their written notice requirements for terminating their contract, but that they would accept our email as written notice, but they were going to bill us for an additional year. So in other words, the position Innovative is taking is that we owe them an extra year's worth of fees. And I think the amount on that, David's 30,000+, correct?
Yeah, about 36,000, I think, dollars. Yeah.
Right. So ultimately, you know, I looked through the contracts, I checked the email correspondence. What this ultimately boils down to is we didn't provide a formal written notice of termination to Innovative. I mean, we didn't, you know, necessarily do a memorandum to them of a written notice termination. However, we had a number of communications with their agent at the time for us in late 2019, early 2020, telling them we were going with a different system, inviting them to be part of this bidding process, not getting anything from them. So we very clearly let them know we were looking at doing something different. And whether we sent them a formal notice or not, their agents knew that we were looking at changing systems and that we wanted them to participate in the process to keep them on, which they then chose not to do. So where that leaves us is we've got to take one of two avenues. We either have to pay this $36,000 bill and not worry about it and call it a day, or I need to send them a letter stating, look, you know, we gave you guys effective notice of termination in 2019 and 2020. We're not going to pay the bill, and then inviting them to take action if they want to from there. So, you know, what I've told David is it's not an absolute slam dunk to get them off our backs by sending them a letter. You know, they can certainly argue that they didn't receive formal written notice. But the fact that they have agents that receive notice, they were invited to be part of that process, is a pretty strong case for us, even if they did bring a suit or something like that. But it's whether or not we want to invite that. So I open it up to the board. You know, any questions you've got for me or any thoughts on the matter?
Kurt, we do have copies of the letters that we sent out requesting bids.
Yes, we do. And we've got the email correspondence with the person who was our agent with them at the time, letting him know that we weren't satisfied and that we were looking at opening that process. We've got a lot of correspondence showing that.
How do emails hold up in court as opposed to a written notice?
So it's it becomes a point of whether or not a party knew or should have known. So while the contract, you know, while we ideally would have had a formal written notice to them, the contract doesn't actually require written notice. It requires just notice, which means at that point, it would be on the court to decide whether or not the emails we provided them constituted appropriate notice where they knew or should have known about us terminating. Email alone, I'd be a little concerned about, but the fact that we also sent bid requests, invited them to continue to be part of you know, the system we were using, that we, you know, wanted them to have a crack at still working with us. I think you put those two in tandem, and that's what kind of makes it a little bit stronger than it might otherwise be.
Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
Did they, when we sent their request for them to rebid the contract, did they send us anything at all?
Not David, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but not to my knowledge, Mike. It looks like what happened at that time is they had a lot of maybe administrative shakeups. I mean, they had a lot of stuff changing over there because the correspondence we began to get in the summer afterwards was from a completely different person who said he was now the agent over there for us. So it looks to me like it went on somebody's desk and then it got sort of just lost in the cracks, and they just didn't pursue it.
We did have a little bit of correspondence with them after we submitted the RFP. They arranged a phone call with us and they sent us a questionnaire. So we do know that they received the RFP.
Oh, the questionnaire they sent was after the RFP. It wasn't prior to.
I believe so. Was it not?
Okay.
No,
I'll
I mean,
double check the dates.
I think we sent out the RFP and for some reason they were not clear on what we wanted. So they sent us this, it was like 100 questionnaire asking us all these detailed things about sort of questioning the RFP itself, right? And so, and what we exactly wanted. And Tiny spent a lot of time filling that out and doing it and sending it back to him. And then we never got a bid from them in the time allotted. Because I mean, we put down that we wanted the bid by a certain day and we got it in from several other companies, but we did not get anything in from them after we had spent all the time doing all of that filling out that questionnaire for them.
So Kurt, what's the worst thing could happen if you go ahead and send the letter? Couldn't we try to bluff them and then we may end up having to pony up, but at least try?
So likely what will happen, what generally happens in these cases is I'll send them the letter and then their legal counsel with collections will send me something back threatening a lawsuit and saying exactly why our argument's wrong. That's pretty typical and that's what I'd expect to see from them because suing somebody is always a pain to do if you're the pursuer, and particularly if the entity you're trying to sue is a nonprofit and you're going to have to sue them in the state that they are in. That's not a great look. So I expect that's what we'd see here too. Now, worst case scenario is instead of sending that, they just bring a suit for collections and they would add to the amount that they're billing us their attorney's fees. So not very high, in my opinion. I mean, if they went straight to a suit, they'd probably have a couple of thousand in attorney's fees they tried to tack on to it. But in reality, that's generally we're going to get another bite at the apple. You know, we're going to send them this letter and we're going to get some form of a threat back from their counsel is probably what's going to happen.
Well, in that letter we send them, Kurt, wouldn't we outline the steps that we went through and the lack of...
Oh, absolutely.
So we would, in that first letter, we would clearly state the steps that we had gone through.
And
And
it appeared that they weren't interested in submitting a bid.
Right. And there was there a time limit that they had to submit the bid?
Yes.
There was a time limit.
Yes.
Okay.
If we didn't receive any correspondence from them after the time we requested information concerning the bid, then we could legally assume that they didn't want to submit a bid.
Right. Right.
I say go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a number of what you're getting to, Mike, is a reliance argument, and there are a number of things that if we really, you know, if they went after us legally about it, we've got some additional arguments like that where we essentially requested change to performance and they just never got back to us at all. So I think there's a lot here. I think it's a strong case for us, but it's one of those things where, you know, that can't just be a decision that David makes. You know, if we're teeing up the possibility of someone bringing a suit against us, it's got to be a board decision. So
Sure.
Do I hear a motion?
After all this discussion, I would move that we not. What are your two options? Basically, allowing them to sue us, not paying the amount they want to bill us for the next year because we were not using their service.
Okay.
Here a second.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
And show me as an abstention. That's probably not a vote I can actually vote on.
So how do you want it worded? What are you wanting? What are you needing?
Well, no, if that's a motion to not pay them the amount, then I'll move forward and I'll prepare correspondence that details the record of of what happened, and we'll move forward from there. When I say I'm abstaining, I just mean that since I'm the counsel who's recommending that course of action to the board, I probably can't wear both hats. And also as a board member, vote yes to what I'm proposing. So that should be it. I'll prep that letter and I'll send it over to David and Tanya to confirm the facts and make sure I'm not misstating anything. And then we'll shoot it their way and we'll see what we get. Like I said, I expect the next communication we'll get from them will probably be something from their attorney telling me why I'm wrong, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Kurt.
Sure thing.
That's why we need to have an attorney on the board, right?
Yeah.
It helps on occasion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. How much more time do you have, Mr. Kurt, before you have to skedaddle?
Oh, I've got plenty. I just wanted to make sure I got that out of the way, because if it starts getting closer to 6, I've got to step away. But.
Okay. So we can go back to the second item, I think, on the agenda now and go down to the
Minutes.
Yeah, the minutes. Yeah.
Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? They're on page 3.
Yep. 3, and I think a little bit on 4 too.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Lily Zhang moves that we accept the minutes as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Kurt Hawkins seconds.
All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So the next thing on the agenda is the library expansion and the construction bid. So John, you have the floor.
Excellent. Thanks for having me here. Thought we could summarize the outcome of the bids that we took and discuss how we wanted to move forward.
Yeah, John, just before you start, just to let the board know, on page 5 is the copy of the 3 bids that we got. And then page 6 are the options sort of written out with some of the other costs that would be involved besides the actual bids. And then page 7 and 8 are sort of detailed of what the landscape would be. So anyway, just so you know, I don't think you have a board booklet. So in any case, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so if we wanted to, we took 3 bids on bid day, and Tate General Contractors was the lowest of the 3 bids. There were 2 bids that were close to one another, Olympus Construction and Tate General Contractors. And then there was one that was $100,000 more. That was Bradford and Scruggs. That's a contractor out of Little Rock, North Little Rock. So we have in the project an allowance of $20,000 for undercut. So not knowing really what we would be looking at when we get the tree roots out and how much soil we'd have to replace and recompact, we put a very conservative estimate in there. We should not use that $20,000 in its entirety. And we also have an allowance for special inspections, and special inspections are, with this steel building, we'll have some welds and some fastening, and the concrete will be taking cylinders and cracked at certain days and for strength. And that's another conservative allowance. We won't be using all of that money, but we wanted to have that in there. So that becomes a little bit of a contingency on the project in general. I would think of that 25,000, we should probably use about half of that for those 2 items. So that gives us, not a lot of contingency money, but probably about $12,000, $13,000 of contingency. But the bid amount is $738,850. So it is considerably higher than the amount that we had discussed the project would run. There were a couple of things that happened since. One was we did decide to, while we were doing the interior renovation, to go ahead and paint the entirety and do the flooring on the entirety of the children's library. And when we were first looking at the cost, I think we were just looking at the flooring. That paint is not a big piece of that, so that doesn't really talk about much of the difference. I think the major difference is just the bid climate right now is a little bit volatile, to say the least, with material pricing. They're having a hard time getting people to stand behind their prices for really any length of time, and so they're putting a lot of contingencies on their numbers. When I talked to Tate about it, I did discuss with him about areas we might be able to save money on the project. And because it's so small, the addition is such a small footprint, there's really not a lot of places for us to save money without just changing what we're doing design-wise to some degree. I don't mean just changing materials. I mean, maybe doing something completely different with the steel roof overhang, maybe going to a different framing system, which would change kind of the form of the building. Without doing something like that, there's really not any place to save much money on a project of this size.
So on page 6, if you look down at the bottom, the only other parts that we added in there, the other construction expenses, I called Williams Tree Services, which I think is probably John said was the only one that might have big enough equipment. If you remember, we have to cut down those 2 big trees in the front. And so they gave me a price of $3,500 to do that. And then the landscaping is about $15,000 to put in new plants and trees and some new topsoil dirt on top of whatever grade of soil that the contractors use, because I don't think that they use really any topsoil. They're just going to use some regular fill to put that in. We also have to move the Jets bus station over to a different spot in the front. And to do the concrete work, that would be about another $2,000. And so if you see the options 1, 2, and 3 on page 6, they all have added in $20,500, and that would cover those three items is what that would basically cover. So, and then I also normally ask you guys to put in a 10% cushion for any kind of change orders. And so Sarah figured out what that would be with the 10%, and then it gives you a total cost of what it would be with all the 3 different options that are available. So
how much is the difference between what we thought it was going to cost and what the lowest bid is?
It's about 100. I mean, in my estimation, David, you tell me. I thought we were on a $600,000 like estimate of construction cost, with perhaps that 10% on top of that, maybe at a 660. So, if you don't consider the 10%, it's about $138,000.
But I think Sarah looked that up, and I want to say that when you guys wanted me to get the information from John and to pay him to make the plans and do the bid, I think on the outset we said it would be about $750,000. And so I think, yeah, so I think it's just that 10% and some of the other costs that sort of pushed it up a little bit more than that. But I think it's actually less than 100,000 is what the board ultimately was thinking about. I mean, that's what she found in her minutes. Is that correct, Sarah? Yeah. So we're not off as far as I think we thought we were. So
all construction costs are real up right now anyway, aren't they, John?
Yeah, very much so. I had on that same day, I had two other projects bid and they both were over. And I've just heard it from everybody right now. I was just going to say that I think I didn't remember the minutes and what we had said. I know that I was really hoping on the outset that the project would come in at 600. I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping the project would be, but that was a year ago when we started doing the project. And, you know, I think we probably, when we went to the board with the budget, I'm guessing David usually does a pretty good job of coming back to me and making sure we built in enough contingencies and things into it. That's probably why we got to the 750. But I think in my mind, this project, if it was a year ago, probably would have been closer to that 600. That's kind of how crazy prices have gone in a year.
I mean, we got the money, right, David?
We actually ended up with a little bit more because in that fund, because of the COVID, there were a lot of money. There was a lot of money left over this past year. I think there was more than $200,000 that we didn't spend, not necessarily on materials, but it was more on like programming and things like that, that we just couldn't spend it because, I mean, what can you do? We can't go anywhere. We can't even take the bookmobile out anywhere. And so actually I think if I'm not mistaken, even after we would spend, if you guys picked one of these options, if we spent every dime of that, we would still have well over $1.5 million left in the special projects budget after we would spend the money on this. So we do have the money there for it, right? And so,
David, I have one question. Is the landscaping, was that included in it? Is the person who gets the contract going to subcontract that? Or is that just an estimated price and we're going to put that out for a separate bid?
So I really only asked the company that we've had for several years that already does our landscaping. We usually spend about $10,000 or $12,000 a year doing landscaping. They do all the mulching, they take away all the leaves, they take care of all the plants and everything like that. And then up until recently, the county has been cutting our grass. And so I really only sort of asked him what the cost would be. And that's why if you see on page 7 and 8, he's showing you how much the plants are going to cost, how much the material like the compost and the shredding mulch and everything is going to cost, and then how much the install price was. That cost seemed a little high to me, and I said something to John, but John took it to another landscaping person, and I think that person said that's about how much it would probably be, or within the ballpark. I mean, I can go to another company. It's just that we've used that company for a number of years, and they're always very great to work with, and like we'll just tell them, well, this is how much we can spend. And then he always keeps it under that budget. So if you guys don't want to spend that much money, I can go back to him and say, well, look, I only have $12,000 to spend. I only have, $10,000 or whatever. He'll make modifications and he'll make it work. It might not be exactly what we had anticipated, but he'll make it work for us. So.
Okay, so that's something that we could negotiate on with him later on. It wouldn't have anything to do with the actual construction then.
No, I mean, we didn't want to put it under the construction because then you're paying them an additional 10%.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
I'm keeping it out. It's the same with cutting the tree down. I didn't put that in that either because I figure, well,
Yeah.
I can call the tree people and have them cut the tree down, right? I mean, I don't need to pay them an extra amount to do that.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to make sure that if we could negotiate that part of it ourselves, that would be good, because I know that if you put it under the contractor, they subcontract it and it raises the price a little more. So yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with the low bid, and I'm fine with the company. They've done a lot of work around here. Good company to deal with, for sure.
So do you want to make a motion to that effect, Mr. Johnson?
Sure, I'll be glad to. I'll be glad to. Do I have to say it again?
Do I hear a second on Mr. Johnson's first?
I will second Jean Passmore.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Let the record say that I abstained.
Okay,
Maybe I should tell you why. My nephew's a construction manager at Tate, so
I
Oh, I
will
don't know
say,
that that would make any difference.
I know, but I just,
well, and
anything come up, I just don't want it to look like that I voted for my nephew's company.
I will say that James, your nephew, called me and said, I need to tell you something that, Janice is actually my aunt and I won't say anything to her before that meeting.
He didn't. He really didn't. I didn't know anything about it.
So anyway, no, we have a very good company. I was very excited that Tate won that bid.
okay, that's exciting. Okay. The library will be definitely excited, especially the children's department, to know that they're gonna ultimately have more space to get some work done and serve the kids and everything like that. And so I think it'll all be
When
good.
will it begin, David?
It already began right now, just 2 minutes ago, but
I mean, when will the first shovel go into the dirt?
that I don't know.
I'll send
Okay.
them a notice to proceed tomorrow and they'll have 7 to 10 days to mobilize on site. So I would say next week, sometime late next week, you'll see somebody out there. Now there will be, the tree will be, they'll need to wait for the tree. And David and I have a plan for the tree.
Yeah, we really do want to use the wood, so we're not just going to take it down and
Yeah.
throw it away. We
Sure,
want
I
to use
remember
the
that.
wood and use it in the library and show the kids that we've used it in the library. We're not just going to. So
Oh,
we
good.
do have a plan. And
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I like that.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you're doing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I don't want people to call you or call me and be complaining like we cut the trees down and we're not going to do anything with it. No, we've got a couple different things that we hope will be good and it'll show the kids different things and stuff like that. So we're kind of excited about that. So at least I am. I'm excited about that. But and I think we've already decided that we're going to try to get somebody up on the roof because we really want to film them taking the tree down and we really want to film them taking the root system out because that's another, I think, fascinating thing to see how many roots are going to be around and where they're going to go. And so anyway, but yeah, so.
Well, John,
Okay.
do we have anything else we need to ask you or you need to tell us?
I don't think of that.
No, it did highlight for me when we move forward with the next phase of the project. We probably need to try to get some city and county cooperation on drainage. Because once we start to put more on the site, we don't really have much area to do stormwater management. And so that, that'll be part of thinking of the next phases would be to figure out how to maybe do that improvement off-site on the city's infrastructure, or come up with something that I think we need some coordination with the two entities.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. John.
Yeah, thank you.
See y'all later.
Look forward to the project.
It'll be
So
good.
David, you want to talk now about disaster preparedness plan renewal?
Actually, this has been all of the hard work of Tanya to really go through all this. And so I'm going to actually let her talk you through all the changes and everything, but they're all listed on page 9 and 10. So.
I have to say mine's a lot more boring than a building expansion. So I can't follow John really. So like David had noted, all the changes are listed on page 9. I realize that the disaster preparedness plan is pretty lengthy, so I'll just kind of walk you through it in brief. Number 5, we changed that the supervisor in adult services is usually the supervisor in charge. That's a process that we're changing. It's a holdover from the days of the reference desk. We also added that the library director is responsible for plan maintenance and distribution. Just wasn't listed before. Page 6, we made a minor grammatical change, but we also added in that the supervisor in charge is able to push a button on the alarm pad that would notify fire, police, and the ambulance. So if they weren't able to make the 911 call, they could just press a button. Page 8, we added that the PR department would be prepared to circulate information on how the loss of our ILS system would impact digital services. On page 10, we struck the line stating that we would check the sprinkler system every 6 months because we don't have a sprinkler system to check. So
I mean, we can keep it in there if you want, but really there's nothing that's the easiest thing we have to do is
yeah, I'll check around. Still don't have one. Move on with my day. Page 12 did lead us down a little bit more of a pathway. It had originally stated that we had a zero tolerance policy for workplace violence, harassment, bullying, and hostile work environment. We didn't technically have such a policy. So we went through the process of determining what exactly we needed to do. What we opted to do was to update our standards of conduct policy within our handbook, which will be coming before the board next month for renewal. So what we changed that line to state was that we take workplace violence seriously, and employees should refer to our standards of conduct policy about workplace violence, harassment, bullying, and hostile work environment. Again, on page 12 regarding workplace violence, we updated a line a little bit to state that if an employee was experiencing domestic violence or a situation outside of work that could lead to workplace violence, that they should let their manager or administration know so that we can notify our security guard to ensure more safety. Page 12, we had stated that we would inform all employees and security if an employee had been terminated and is no longer allowed in staff-only areas. We changed all employees to managers. Page 14, I made a little bit of an addition there where I said that employees should not be alone with or stand too close to an upset patron. I added in the line that when possible, employees should put a desk or other furniture items between themselves and an upset patron. More of a little bit of guidance. On pages 16 and 34, under information about natural gas leaks, I had noted that the smell of natural gas is similar to that of rotten eggs. On page 18, regarding the loss of internet service, we had noted that staff can use the offline circulation tool. That was something new that came with Atrium, so it was something that we wanted to make note of there. Also on that same page, we had noted that the PR department should inform the public via Facebook and other methods if the ILS is expected to be down for a significant length of time. Page 14, under bed bugs, we had noted that if a material came in that had been infested, that it could be sanitized in the library's ultraviolet ray book sterilizer, which is something new that we bought during the pandemic. But it's something that we found we could continue to use, and it kills bed bugs. So we added.
What page is that on? What page is that on?
That one should be under page
24. Right.
24. Yeah.
Yes.
24.
Yes.
Okay.
And then throughout, I made some minor changes. I changed references from Millennium to Atrium as we changed our ILS provider. And we also changed in where it would state that, in the event of this emergency, to contact the director or assistant director. And then in parentheses, it would say, or admin on call. They were all pretty major emergencies. And we felt that it should always be the director or the assistant director. There wouldn't be another admin on call that you would call if there was a fire. So we just removed the line saying, or admin on call, because we just felt it wasn't necessary. Those were really the only changes that we made. We had a few other very minor grammatical changes that did not impact the overall message within the plan. This did go before you all, I believe, in 2019. So I realize that it's been a little bit since you've looked over it. Again, I recognize that it is a lengthy document. So if you all have any other questions.
Well, I learned something today. I didn't know bed bugs got in books.
Oh, they do. They do. There have been libraries that have shut down because of infestations, because they have to shut everything down and treat everything. They get into the upholstery, they get into the spines of the books.
I've
Really?
never seen one.
I don't think I have either, other than pictures.
Yeah, that and the other big danger for libraries is a fungus of some sort. If a fungus gets in, it can again get through a whole. But the machine that we have looks like a big oversized oven. But you put the books in, you kind of hang them in, and it's got a fan, and it blows the pages so that they all open, and it's got an ultraviolet light, and it kills everything that's in there. So you put it in there for like 30 seconds, and then you can put another batch in for 30 seconds and so on. And so, like she said, it's a fairly new for us, but we got it to help with the COVID, but it also helps with all these other things moving forward. And so
It also kills mold. Yeah.
yeah, we pretty regularly at this point, just every book that we get in, we just run it through this thing before we put it back on the shelf again. So it was a great investment. It was a great investment.
Right, that's good.
So you're now sanitizing every book?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Before we were just letting them sit for 7 days from the COVID point of view before we were able to put them on the shelf. And now we don't even have to wait that long. We can just sanitize all the books. But I think moving forward, even after the COVID hopefully gets sort of, it goes down and sort of reduces significantly, we'll still probably use the machine as material comes in. We put it on a cart and we can wheel it over to Children's and they'll use it as well. And so, yeah.
That's
So I think we
tools.
need somebody to make a motion saying that we're able to make all of these changes to this particular document. And then I think it'll be good for another 2 years or so. Usually our documents come up every 2 to 4 years. We just want to update them, and this was the time to do this one. So,
Well,
Do I
I'm
hear a
that we
motion?
accept the revised disaster document.
Here, second.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Do we have any more new business, David?
no, we're still on track with the masks. We've been looking at we've been trying to track the cases, and they've been slowly going down, and more people have been getting vaccinated. And so I had told you in an email that we thought maybe we would on the 26th, starting on the 26th, maybe not require them to come into the building. And then we're also, I think we're thinking starting in the first Sunday in May, we're going to go and add back in our Sunday afternoon hours that we haven't been open till then. So I think we're on track to try to do that. And the only other exciting thing that we have going on is that we're going to start taking the bookmobile out this summer with crafts and things like that. Now, we're not going to still be able to probably use it to actually let people get on and check in and out material from that point of view, but just to drive around, let the kids see it and sort of hand out crafts and stuff. But we're shooting for the fall is really what we're shooting for, is to have it all ready to go, have routes made, have publish the routes and everything like that. And we're hoping that starting in the fall, then we'll be able to really take it out. It's been a long time coming. Really kills me that it sits there and does nothing. Drives me crazy, to say the least. But in any case, we're getting there. So yeah, we're excited about that. But other
Any
than that,
old
I don't think we have
business?
anything else going on. No. So
Anybody else think of anything?
Thank you, Tanya, for all your hard work on that. I know policy type things are very, very important, but they're also very, very boring and to work on.
They can be. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion. Mike does.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Well, you guys have a good rest of the night.
You too.
Thank you.
You
Thank
too.
you very much.
Good
Thank-
good meeting.
Thank
Very
you.
Good
Good
meeting.
to see everyone.
Yep.